As you guys can no doubt see, this is not a Range Rover. In fact, it's very not a Range Rover. It weighs about a third of what the Range Rover does and has about a third of the power as well, and probably about a tenth of the torque. And as you can see by that badge down there, this is in fact a Mazda MX-5. And this is my third project car that I've got on the go at the moment. So I bought this little car in summer of last year for a few reasons really. Firstly, I knew I was going to get a Range Rover, so I had to have a second car that I'd have on the road as a backup. If and when the Range Rover breaks down or I have it off the road to do some work on it. I've never actually fiddled around with petrol vehicles before. If you look at my channel, most of the stuff I've ever messed around with has always been diesel engine vehicles. So I know my way around a diesel engine when it comes to performance and tuning, but I've never really messed around with a petrol engine. So I thought I'd buy myself a little petrol engine vehicle very cheaply, just to mess around with and have a bit of fun with. Initially, all I wanted from this car was just something else to fiddle around with and occasionally a bit of top-down fun for when the weather's good like today. However, as we all know, project scope creep is a very real thing. And as soon as I got on YouTube and started looking at what other people have been doing with these things, my plans changed pretty quickly. So it turns out that these little 1.6 litre and the 1.8 litre engines are very amenable to having a turbo strapped onto the side and can produce very respectable levels of horsepower for such a small engine. So although this little 1.6 litre engine only produces around 100 horsepower standard, with a turbo and around 10 pounds of boost, figures of 200 or 250 brake horsepower are fairly easily attainable. And as you can imagine, in a car that weighs less than a tonne, 250 brake horsepower is rather a lot. So in order to reach that power goal, there's four main things we're going to need to change on this car or add. Firstly, of course, the turbo. I've actually bought my turbo already. It's a TD04 that you might find on a Subaru Impreza WRX. Secondly, ECU. Obviously the stock engine management system is not going to like it when you add 10 psi of boost or more to the engine, so that needs to be replaced. That part of the project I'm already quite a way into, which I'll take you through in a minute. But thirdly, injectors are going to need to be replaced. The standard injectors in this car supply around 175 cc's of fuel. We're going to need a fair bit more than that to achieve our 250 horsepower goal. And then fourthly, we're going to also add an intercooler in the front here, just to keep those intake temperatures nice and cool when we're making boost. So yeah, simple. Now, with the help of my housemate, who also drives an MX-5, as you guys have probably seen in the background over there, we've done a fair bit of preliminary work on this car already to get it up to a basic bare minimum standard. So when we first got it, the engine got a pretty good going over. We did the cam belt, a full engine service, all new belts. We also did discs and pads on all four corners, so they're all nice and fresh. And I also did some suspension work and changed some anti-roll bar links and stuff like that, just so it's nice and tight underneath. So she's driving pretty well at the moment, and it's just about ready for some more power, I think. The other advantage of an MX-5 over other small cheap petrol cars is of course the ability to take the roof down. And just like that, you become irresistible to women. Or is that other men? Either way, it is great fun to get the top down on one of these and go for a back road blast, which is just what I'd be doing right now if it hadn't just failed its MOT. So yeah, as I said, I would love to take you guys for a quick drive now so I can show you what the MX-5 is all about, but unfortunately it failed its MOT. I'll put a picture of the fail list up on the video so you guys can have a look and see how bad it is. and I really want to get this through its MOT before I start doing the turbo work, so that so when I'm working on it and tuning it over the next few months, I'll be legal to drive it on the road and road test it. So this is what you call a Speeduino. And what this is a engine management unit which is based on Arduino. If you guys don't know what an Arduino is, it's basically a simple programmable computer that takes inputs from sensors and can give you outputs. So sometimes they're used for like turning on lights, reading temperatures, that kind of thing. But in this application, it's actually functioning as a fully functional programmable ECU that will control the fueling and ignition of this engine. On top of this board, we've got lots of power circuits and a lot of stuff that I don't really understand, but this basically allows the low-level outputs of the Arduino to power injectors and to fire coils as well for firing the spark plugs. Also attached on the board here you can see a map sensor, which is for reading the manifold pressure. This is an open source project, so the way we built this was actually we bought the circuit board bare, and we bought all of the separate components from an online supplier and then soldered them all in ourselves, and incredibly it actually works and does run the car. So the reason you need to have a programmable ECU as opposed to using the standard one is because obviously when you add more boost, you obviously need to add more fuel, and there's no way to do that with the standard ECU. So with this I can use my laptop to manually control all of the fueling and ignition settings and loads of other stuff to customize the running of the engine just how I need it to be, to make the engine run exactly how I want it. All I did was design a quick enclosure on SolidWorks and then 3D printed it using my own 3D printer. And this is kind of just a prototype, but it does actually run the car and work. I've put a few hours worth of tuning into this, so the car does run and drive. It's not perfect, it doesn't like cold starts yet, and it's actually part of the reason why the car failed its MOT recently is because the low idle emissions were too high. The carbon monoxide emissions were too high at idle, so there's a bit more tuning work for me to do there. But it has proved out the concept, and I'm confident we're going to be able to use this to get this MX-5 producing really good power. If any of you guys are interested in learning more about Speeduino, I'll leave a link in the description so you can go and check it out. So arguably the next most important part of this project is this. This is a TD04 turbo, purchased from China, as you can tell by the text on the front, and this is part of the reason why this turbo project is going to be so cheap, because this fully functional turbo sent me back just under £100 delivered to me from China. Now, while a Chinese turbo probably wouldn't be advisable on any kind of car you really cared about or a high performance car, people have had surprising level of success using these cheap turbos to make decent power and fairly reliably as well. As I said, this is a TD04, which you would normally find strapped onto the 2-litre Subaru Impreza WRX engine, in which application I think they make around 250 horsepower. As I said before, somewhere between 200 and 250 horsepower is where I'd like this car to end up. I think that's quite a sensible level of power. You can go a lot bigger than this turbo, but obviously when you go to a bigger turbo, you increase your turbo lag and also increase the risk of detonating the engine as well. The other thing is that above that power level, things like gearboxes and rear differentials start to fail on MX-5s, so that's why I think for the ultimate budget build, between 200 and 250 brake horsepower should be more than enough. So this has just been a quick introduction video to this project, guys. There'll be more content coming in the next few weeks, and I'll be back next weekend with another Range Rover video to give the conclusion on the suspension woes. But for now, guys, thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.